All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So we're going to get into um, more into the World War II. Specifically, we're going to start off looking at how things got from bad to worse for the Jewish people in Germany during this time. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at your warm up. So here's your picture. Now, my question to you is this: What is this? Why are the spectators, the people, three people you see in the back, Um, why do you think they look nervous with Hitler balancing the world with a gun? Okay. Now, if you guys should know who the guy is with the hat with the stars. You guys should know which country he represents. The guy next to him, one with the hat still attached to him, that is supposed to be Britain, supposed to be representing Britain. So, with those in mind, with that in mind already, what do you think this artist trying to say? With the spectators, why do you think they look that so nervous with Hitler balancing the world with a gun? Okay, so think about it. Write your response. Okay, because we're moving on in three, two, one. Okay, so up to this point, if you haven't realized it by now, um, if a lot of us have heard stuff about what the Nazis did to the Jewish people, but again, I want you to have, well, hopefully you realized it by now that the early stuff that the Jewish people went through, it wasn't violent stuff. It was stuff just to make their lives hell, make their business go out of business, take away their right to vote and things like that. But it wasn't anything violent, which we know about. You've heard about the concentration camp, you heard about the ghettos and things like that, starving them, and you know that kind of stuff. But that's going to change. That's where you're going to learn today. When did it change from being just making people's lives miserable to when did it become violent? Okay. Now, in 1937, legislation laws for anti Jewish laws came up again. Basically, they passed a law saying Jewish doctors couldn't treat non Jewish people. Now, here's the thing, a lot of the best doctors, especially back then, were Jewish doctors. These guys were some of the best in the world, whether it comes to dealing with the heart, liver, specialists, things like that. And this not only really hurt the Jewish doctors because, hey, they're taking away their patients and their livelihood, but it also hurt some people who were like German and things like that who relied on these doctors, you know. So this one actually kind of was pretty bad, you know. But again, because of what the Nazis believe in, and their ideology, yeah, no, Jewish doctors cannot treat non-Jewish patients. Okay, now this kid you see right there, I'm gonna kill his last name. I'm gonna try to pronounce it the best I can, but his first name was Herschel and it's Gerwinspan. I think I said that right. He was a 12-year-old Polish Jewish kid living in France. Now, the thing is, he heard about how the Nazis exiled his parents from Germany, you know, and he didn't know where they were, he didn't know what happened to them. So chances are they did get rounded up, put in ghettos or concentration camps or something like that. So he was pretty upset. So in November 7th, 1938, he shoots and kills this German diplomat in Paris named Ernest von Roth. Okay. He took his frustration out on the guy and he shoots him and kills him. Now, this is again, like I said, where things turn violent for the Jewish people. Okay. The Nazis took this as a like they brought it up into the forefront, telling the German people, "Look, see what happens now. These Jewish people, they're killing our men. Ernest von Roth was a hero. He was a diplomat. He did nothing to these people, and look at they shot and killed him in the streets of Paris." So anti-Semitic frenzy just ran rapid through Germany, and through November 9th through the 10th in 1938. Um, It's known as Chris Knot, or in English, Night of Broken Glass. Okay, Jewish churches, which are known as synagogues, burned down. Houses, schools, businesses that were owned by Jewish people burned down. 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and sent to Nazi concentration camps. Now, remember, they were just setting them up, you know, years before. You know, they didn't use them yet, but now they have a reason to use them. So, so now they're throwing those guys in. Hundreds of people were killed, shot, stabbed, whatever. You know, dragged out of their homes and just straight shot and things like that. And this is truly the beginning part of when the Jewish people are treated violently. And it's, I hate to say it, but it's really because of that kid. You know, was this going to be the plan the whole time? You know, eventually they're going to turn violent. We can't say for sure. You know, but we know for certain because it happened when this kid shot that guy. Then it totally went violent from then on out. So, September 4th, 1939, Japan declares a neutrality to the European war. Japan basically told um, Germany, hey, you guys handle your stuff over there. If, you know, Britain or France comes to us, we're going to tell them no. You know, they come to us saying, hey, we need your help. We're going to tell them no. Okay. We got bigger fish to fry over here, and that's China. Remember, China is a huge country. Japan is a pretty small island. The next day, the Americans basically said, we favor isolationism. Isolationism is basically, we're going to be over here, you guys are over there, okay? We're going to take care of ourselves. And they too declared neutrality in the war of Europe. So America is not taking the side of the Germans or the British or French and all them. They're not. However, Canada jumps in the war. They declare war against Germany. Okay. September 25th, Germany bombs Warsaw, Poland. And when I mean bomb, I don't mean just like one or two bombs. I mean, we're talking total annihilation of Warsaw. They basically demolished like almost every single building. I mean, it was bad. And the city surrendered 2 days later. They couldn't take anymore again there because there wasn't much of the city left. Now, through September and November 1939, Jewish people from Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Germany were gathered up. Okay, and then this is where they're put into ghettos and concentration camps and things like that. Okay, um, on November 14th of that same year, the Soviet Union is kicked out of the League of Nations, and Russia's like, "Well, why are we kicked out?" You know, and they were told because of your aggression with Finland. Yeah, you took over Poland, you know, like basically almost half of Poland. You basically joined the Nazis, taking over that part, and now you're going after Finland. You're just as bad as Hitler. And they're like, you don't understand what the true meaning of the League of Nations is, so we're gonna kick you out. So Soviet Union's like, fine, we'll leave. And on December 2nd, the 1940s Olympics is basically canceled. They're like, you know what, this this war that's happening, this phony war that they said was going to happen, it's a legit war now, and they're like, might as well cancel the Olympics until this whole thing settles. And yeah, you see in this picture here, before, you know, they called this a phony war because there wasn't any fighting for like 6 months. But to some people who were experiencing the shootings and things like that, this war was really actually real, you know. So as you can see here, this lady, her sister was shot in front of her, you know. So yeah. So April 9th, 1940, Germany attacks Norway and Denmark at the same time. Okay. They basically separate their troops and boom, boom, you guys hit Denmark, you hit Norway. May 10th, about a month later, Germany attacks Belgium and Netherlands, same time, but they use the Blitzkrieg attack, which is again the lightning attacks, a lot fast, quick, hard hitting, a lot of soldiers, at one time type of attack. Now, the French, um, back when World War One ended, they set up barriers, you know, for like tanks and things like that, so they couldn't go through. Um, but again, remember the big difference between World War One tanks. Those sucked. Those were not that um, not that great. They were easy to destroy and things like that, hard to maneuver. These German Panzer tanks were so much more better. They had a great engine. They could maneuver. They could shoot. They had tougher armor, and they ran through the French barriers as if they were like toilet paper. They were nothing to these tanks. Now, the French, contrary to their popular belief, they did fight back. They were fighting back the Nazis, keeping them at the border as much as they could. And the British actually sent some helps. The British sent soldiers over because the British knew, hey, if France goes under, we're going to be next. But again, the German forces were too strong and they kept pushing and pushing the French back more and more. And they got to the point where they were about to take over France. Now, the Nazis basically took over all of France except this little section, which you see in this little map on this paper you see right there on the side. That picture that says the Allied, that little section, that's how much land the Allies had left. 450,000 British and French soldiers were pushed back to this town called Dunkirk. And they were completely surrounded. As you can see on this map, that's a true map. This is a leaflet that was dropped by the Nazis to the French and British soldiers, basically telling them, if you see on there on the paper, look at this map. It gives you true situations. Your soldiers are completely surrounded. Stop fighting. Put down your arms. They're telling them, we got you. We got soldiers on land. In the sea, we got submarines, we got battleships, and in the air, we got planes. You're surrounded. Stop fighting. Surrender. Now, surrender, as these soldiers knew, was a death sentence. So, no, you might as well go down fighting, try to save some people as much as they could, than surrender to the Nazis. So, any British battleships that came or carriers that came to Dunkirk to try to save the soldiers were sunk by the German U boats, their submarines. And this was a big problem because they couldn't afford to lose any more ships. So the British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, he was there just thinking, like, okay, well, what could we do? What could we do? Okay. And the thing is, you have to remember the submarines, right? There's so much in the water, and they have torpedoes like at a depth of let's say 50 feet, right? That's highest they can go. Yeah, they can go lower, but they can't go any higher, closer to the water level than 50 feet. Okay, so that's where periscopes can go, or the torpedoes can go. And he thought, well, why don't we use civilian boats and yachts? They go underwater 30 feet. So with a civilian ship, when they shoot the torpedoes, they're going to miss them by like 20 feet. They can't go any higher. They can't go to 40 feet or 30 feet, you know. So those torpedoes will just go right underneath them. So he calls to the citizens of Britain, guys, we need your ships. We need you to go to Dunkirk, pick up our soldiers, bring them back. If you can bring back some French soldiers, awesome. But let's get our boys back. And some people in his administration thought, man, that's a death sentence. Not many people are going to do this, if any of them do it. Ends up being 1,200 boats went off from Britain to Dunkirk to pick up soldiers. This was known as Operation Dynamo. Now, of the 450,000, 338,000 British and French soldiers were saved. Sadly, they didn't have enough ships to pick up everyone, so they had to leave behind about 90,000 soldiers. Okay, and then by a couple days later, the Nazis took over France completely. Now, this is something you don't have to write down, but I do want you to listen to it because the words itself is amazing. During Dunkirk, Churchill gives this speech known as Fight Them on the Beach speech. He says, I have myself full confidence that if all do their duty, if nothing is neglected, and if the best arrangements are made, as they are being made, we shall prove ourselves once again to defend our island home, to ride out the storm of war, to outlive the menace of tyranny, if necessary for years, if necessary alone. At any rate, that is what we are going to try and do. That is resolve of His Majesty's government, every man of them. That is the will of Parliament and the nation. The British Empire and the French Republic, linked together, is their cause, and in their need will defend to the death their native soil, aid each other like good comrades to the utmost of their strength. Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen or may fall into the grip of the Gestapo and all the odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go down to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and ocean. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills, and we shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island or a large part of it is subjugated, and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until in God's good time the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of old. So that's the speech he gave the day after Dunkirk. That was on June 4th, 1940. And that's the whole speech. That was just a little bit. The whole speech really gave people hope and pride. Some soldiers felt like, oh man, this was that whole Dunkirk situation was a disaster, but some people realized, like, hey, this is a miracle that we even got 300,000 soldiers, let alone 100,000. To get that many people, that's a miracle. And, this gives us hope that, hey, we can fight on, we can do this. Okay. Now, June 10th, about a week later, Italy declares war on Britain and France under the Pact of Steel agreement with Germany. So now Italy's like, okay, we're going to go to war with Britain and France now. Excuse me. 4 days later, the German army goes into Paris, completely takes it over, things like that. And then they do this one thing where they set up a puppet government. Now, what does that mean? A puppet government is, again, the Nazis took over France completely, right? They set up a government, they put people in charge that they know they can control. So if they feel like, hey, we want France to tell the world, um, we gave up this country, we surrendered, this and that, they'll make those people say those things, even though it's not true. They fought and things like that. They'll make them say that. If another country says, "Hey, France, let us borrow some money," the Nazis will make sure those people say, "Yes, how much do you want to borrow?" Even though France would normally say, "No, no, we're not going to lend you money," you know, because again, the Nazis put people in charge that they can control, just like a puppet. They control it. Okay. Now, with France now in their control, majority of Europe now in their control. Hitler is like, okay, great, awesome. Now let's focus on the basically the last country in Europe who can stand in our way, and that's Britain. So they're looking at Britain. We gotta attack them. We gotta invade them. But here's the thing: Operation Sea Lion, which is uh, the plan to invade Britain, you can't do it yet. Hitler felt that, hey, if we invade now because they're pumped up, because they're ready to go, it's going to be a fight. But if you break their spirits, you break their will, that's when you have a better chance. And like Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, the stuff you do before the war, before the fight, that's half the battle right there. You break the enemy's spirit, their will, their desire to fight, you basically won the war. And that's what Hitler's going to do. He sends planes over Britain, from France to Britain, and they start bombing them. And this is throughout the summer of 1940. Um, Night raids would happen. Sirens go off. People in homes would turn off their lights, go into basements, go into subways, you know, underground areas, and the Nazis would bring their planes over and drop bombs, and the fires would light up the sky. And anti-aircraft guns be shooting off, things like that. So if you look at this picture, you see that looks like a church back there. Oh, yeah, that is a church back there. Um, if you look at the bottom parts of these homes, see how you can see the smoke all the way through? That tells you that's a wall. The other wall is gone. So if you're looking at a wall in your room, or in a classroom, whatever, imagine the back wall behind you being gone. That's exactly what's happening there. That's just a wall right there. And the other walls are gone. Okay. Um, During these night bombings and night raids, a lot of civilians died. There was so much damage to property, but this didn't stop the British. This didn't make them like, oh my God, oh, we're gonna lose this war. Oh. No, this did not damage their will. Okay. So if you ever seen those posters that say, um, keep strong and keep going on and things like that, you know, that's the British slogan from this time. So if you ever seen this poster again, that's the original. That's what it was came from. There's a World War II. Those keep calm and carry on posters. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So here's my question to you. Do you think Operation Dynamo, the plan to get civilian ships to Dunkirk to save those soldiers, do you think that was a success? Remember, they had to leave behind 90,000 soldiers, but they did save like 338,000. So, in your opinion, was that operation a success? Why or why not? Okay. So, think about it, write your response, give your explanation. Okay. Once you're finished with this, you are done with this lesson. So, hopefully, you learned something new. Hopefully, you enjoyed it. Okay. With that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.